Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Learning Curves. I'm so excited to have you all back in my studio. We're at Second Soul Studios today, and we have a very exciting interactive podcast today called Show Me Something New. And I'm here with my guest, Keely Werly. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for being here today, Keely.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Keely is the owner of the Traveling Tap, and she has a really cool business. And it's one of my favorite kinds of businesses because some of you might have heard before that I used to bartend for 7 years, so really into events and event planning. And we met because I invited her here to check out my studio so I could possibly use her services and learned about all the exciting things she's doing. And I thought you would love this podcast today. So today we're going to learn more about her business, and also she has a very new exciting product that she's going to be offering on her carts that we're actually going to learn how to make that today and learn all about her business. So I hope you really enjoy this episode, and thank you for tuning in today. Also, don't forget, if you love what you're hearing, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you. So, Keely, can you start off by telling me a little bit about your traveling cart and your business?
Yeah, so I started my business about 3 years ago with my husband. It was during the pandemic. I really wanted one of those cute little Italian Piaggio Apes. So if you don't know what a Piaggio Ape is, it's this cute little three-wheeled car that would go around Italy and France.
I know that cart very well because I just got married in Capri, and
yes.
They had those little carts all over the island. They are so cute. I wanted to take one home with me.
They're so cute. And if you don't know what we're talking about, if you ever watched the movie Luca, they show up in the background, right? So what we found out is those are not cheap. At all. So we did some digging and we started to learn about the mobile bar business because I was like, well, if we're going to invest in something mobile, I'd want it to be something that has to do with beverages. It doesn't have to be bars alcoholic, but something with beverages because to me that was the easiest thing to do. Mm-hmm. So we started out with this 2007 Trifun. It's this Japanese three-wheeled car that's a bigger version of the Piaggio Ape. So we started out with that truck, and we did, I think we did 18 events our first year. So we had a really good year because you have to think about that is during the pandemic.
Really?
It was when they were slowly
starting
lifting.
To get back. Okay.
We still had restrictions, but not as much before. So we did that for about a year, running that beverage truck. And then my husband and I decided we wanted to try to tap something else. So being both music majors, we decided we would try to tap a piano. So we got this old clunky piano and, gutted it, put it back together, put taps on it, and to this day, it's one of our highest selling event rentals.
I can see that. I know that you've had this piano in the studio before for photo shoots, and it's really quite elegant, probably for classier types of events and things like that. I could see that. Just a really great idea that is.
And the way, when we dress it up, the way it kind of pops, I mean, there's nothing else like it, and so it's a really unique installation piece that we have. And then from there, we branched into a little pedal cart. You can use it for ice cream. We tend to use it for bubbly bars and sangria bars, but we have done the occasional ice cream party with it.
Oh, fun. So do you take them to events and actually pedal it around the events, or does it just stay still?
I can. I've even offered.
I think that'd be the most the cart that would stop the most at an event is a champagne cart pedaling by.
I mean, I'm more than happy to do that. I even ask brides, do you want to wheel it in?
Right.
And some of them are kind of like, no. But it is there. If you'd like to do that, I'm totally open to let people ride it around.
Oh, that's so much fun. I love that. So what kind of events do you normally get hired for? Like what type of businesses look for you for their events?
We mostly serve private events, whether that's weddings, backyard parties, corporate happy hour. We'll do the occasional business opening. What is important for people to know is we don't actually supply alcohol. So when we're hired, our clients are actually purchasing their own alcohol. So we tend to stay away from any event that would be open to the public where the public would have to pay per person. We don't do any exchange of money in regards to the cost of a beverage. So we try
So it's just more of the service related
more of
part
the service,
of it. Okay.
yes. And because of that, that's why we kind of stay in the private sector more than the public sector.
Right. Because there's insurance policies that go along with liquor, and it's better if the owner picks that up.
Correct. So even though we are not providing the alcohol, we still hold liquor liability because we're still liable because we're serving.
Exactly. Now, I know that you had told me that what we're going to talk about today is, along with the carts, you're offering a new service that's very exciting that we're going to learn about here in the kitchen today. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So I got that pedal trike, and I loved it. And we got asked to do ice cream a lot. And I have to admit, and I think some people are going to find this really shocking, I really hate ice cream.
Hate ice cream.
Like, not really eating it. I have occasional flavors I like, but I think anyone will tell you if they've worked in the ice cream industry that they kind of hate working with ice cream. It's sticky.
I can see that.
Right? Like, you have to maintain it at a certain temperature. There's a lot of factors that go in with ice cream. And after running the cart for a few events here in Florida, I was just like,
Melts
oh,
fast.
no. Yeah. So we started to move towards using it as like a bubbly bar, which we will still do. But a couple years ago, I started baking as like a way to relax and more as a way to kind of challenge myself to see if I could actually make something, because I'm not like a great cook. And I ended up purchasing this little creme brulee kit, and I was like, okay, that's it. I'm gonna try this. And I made my first batch, and my neighbor came over, which he's over periodically throughout the day, it feels like. But he comes over and he's like, this is the best creme brulee I've ever tasted. I would pay like $14 for this. And so like throughout the months, he would come over periodically and be like, hey, I had creme brulee for $12 and it was not as good as yours. And I was like, this is really interesting. Like, I like making it. It makes people happy. Can I put this creme brulee in the pedal trike? And so I did my research, and it turns out it's way easier to put in the pedal trike than ice cream is, and I don't hate it.
Well, one thing that's cool about it is it's a very unique dessert. And I think a lot of times when you order it in a restaurant, you have to put the order in ahead of time because it takes longer to prepare. So it's just something that I think it's a treat that people look forward to because it's so unique. So the fact that you have that on a cart, it's not something that you're going to see every day on a food truck.
Right.
So that's a great idea.
Thank you. And I love when, you get that creme brulee and you do that first crack of the sugar. And I don't know, there's just something about creating that experience that I love, even though it's so small and so simple.
Well, it sounds delicious, and I can't wait to try some.
Yeah, me too.
So in a few minutes, we're going to go in the kitchen over here and watch Keely make some creme brulee for us. So I'm excited about that. But before we do that, I do have a few more questions for you. So owning a bar cart business, can you tell me some of the challenges about that? Because I know that they seem to be very popular right now. You know, a lot of different events, there's carts with flowers on them, and, you know, they're selling all different kinds of unique services are coming out of the different carts. And I'd love to learn more about the bar cart business.
So I will say, you know, I'm not a bartender by trade, nor am I a car aficionado. I like cars, but it doesn't mean I know how to fix them. So some of our major hurdles have been understanding why the car is not working, right? Like the car always has an issue with it. We would carry around battery chargers, extra gas, extra fuel line. I mean, it just seems like something breaks on the car all the time. We're hoping now that we have a brand new Piaggio Ape, which I don't know if I mentioned that we got a brand new Piaggio Ape. We shouldn't have those issues, but I know.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I know that if you're getting into the bar business and you're buying like a used vehicle to save on money, that is something to completely expect. And then one of the biggest and I think hardest things I had to learn is that just because you have this unique cart or car and it looks gorgeous and your branding looks aesthetic and your photos look aesthetic, that doesn't necessarily mean that clients are going to be hitting you up every day, all day. I think a lot of people that get in this mobile industry think because they've got the pretty cart and car that it's just something that's going to automatically happen without realizing that you have to actually put the work in for people to choose you as their bartending service.
So what's the secret to your success?
You just have to be like that squeaky wheel, right? You have to be that person that's constantly, you know, talking about your business. You have to be your biggest champion. Because if you're not going to be your biggest champion, nobody else is going to be that for you. I've always been a person that's like, I've kind of paved my own way. And it's the same for, I think, when you become an entrepreneur. If you're not there to pave your own way, nobody else is going to do that for you. So when you take on these bar carts and you take on these mobile businesses, you have to be ready to get out there and do the networking, to be on your social media, to post the reels. Maybe you're not doing a post every 3 days, but you got to be on your stories. Send out newsletters. There's just so much more that goes into owning these type of service industry businesses other than having an aesthetically pleasing looking event rental. So
when you first started your business, I think that's a lot of us, I think, started businesses during COVID. That's our time to really, it's time to let's get creative. That's what Second Soul was started during.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The CEA kind of died. All the clients are like, we're not out marketing right now. So I'm like, okay, let me just start a studio during this time period. So I think that's when a lot of creative juices were going to see all kinds of companies coming out of this air, which is really exciting. But the fact that you, even though things were a lot slower, you got business.
We did.
And it's one of the things I try, and I'm interested to hear your story behind that, because a lot of companies just think that they can start something and it's gonna go great and everything like that. But there's just so many different things that you have to do ahead of time in order to even get the first piece of business. And I think that's excellent that you were that successful within that time period. Can you tell me a little bit about starting out and how all that went? Because I think a lot of my audience might be interested to learn a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I did a ton of research on the back end. There are groups out there about the mobile industry, so I did a lot of just reading through posts to see if this was a viable business. I looked in the county to see who else was doing mobile bar services. I did as much prep work as I possibly could. Now, I come from a background of education, so that's my major. I will plan and plan and plan until there's literally nothing left to plan. So even before we bought the truck, before we launched, I already knew how much money was going to be allocated for what my hard, no's were going to be when it came to paying for a vehicle, hence why we got the tri-fund. I already had all of my paperwork filed and paid for, or I should say I knew what everything was going to cost before I went to the bank to get a small loan. So I did use a small bit of my own equity to fund my business, but I had all of those costs laid out before I even asked for the loan. So I didn't want any surprises, basically. So I feel like, have I answered some of your questions?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm kind of going in circles
you're
here.
good.
But
Did you have a marketing budget set aside to be able to kind of get the word out in the beginning, especially in a time period when a lot of people couldn't get together?
So I didn't exactly have a budget. I had a friend who was also using the pandemic as an opportunity to pursue her passion in marketing. And it was kind of like, hey, I'll do this if you do this kind of thing.
Collaborating.
So, right, we were collaborating so she could build her portfolio, and in exchange, I was getting marketing on social media.
Right.
So we had that, and then I spent a lot of time, my husband and I both spent a lot of time learning how to keg and troubleshooting tapping systems and all that stuff.
So you told me a story about how you got started and that you were in education for 15 years teaching music.
Yes.
And she is a concert cello player.
I
Yes.
played the cello. Yep.
And you also conduct with the Sarasota Orchestra.
Yes. So I conduct their youth symphony, their intermezzo group
I love
in
that.
Sarasota. Yeah. That was where I thought, my passion was. But, when you're like 22 and they're trying to make you hone in on a profession, music always came easy to me. And I was like, I don't know, I'm just going to do music because it's easy. Because I didn't have to work very hard. And then, luckily for me, I was a pretty good teacher. And so the first couple of years of teaching were really fun. I really enjoyed it. And then as I became a parent myself, and as life got crazier, and as the school system got crazier, I just started to feel really burnt out by education. And I just didn't feel like I was creative anymore. And for me, if I'm not creating, then I'm not happy at all.
So then you decided to make a switch.
I did. So I did go back to education and run my mobile bar business for a year and a half. And then I took a desk job and ran both. And so this past 6 months has been the first time I've exclusively worked for myself without another job to lean on.
Yeah, I think that's good advice for the audience. Since starting a business is really hard, but don't go all in the beginning. Baby step it a little bit, because that way, when it starts taking off, you'll know the time period when to. Okay, it's time for me to leave my job,
right,
and move forward. I think it helps.
And I just think, from speaking from experience, it's on paper, it's sure, I can do this. It'll work out great. Well, you know what I didn't expect? I didn't expect the inflation rate that's going on right now, or the fact that gas has never gone below $3 anymore, or this summer, apparently we're all going to break every bone. There is a lot that you have to take into account before you just walk away,
Right,
and work for yourself.
Right. I think it's kind of easing into that process because there's a lot to learn about being a business owner. I did the same thing. I started really young. I was 27 when I opened up my first company, and I bartended and I bartended at nighttime, and I worked my company during the day. I didn't get any sleep at all, probably for the first 2 years of it. But it just helped me have that stability of having money coming in and working really hard. And it took me a couple companies to figure it out, a couple failures and mistakes that I made. And then finally it's like, okay, aha, here it is. So then having that additional job on the side kind of helped during those big learning curves that happen in the beginning, or maybe things that you mentioned that that you don't expect.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, there's always seasons of change, and there's always going to be moments when it's hard and then moments when it's really easy. And I just think the important thing is you have to take a lesson from each moment and apply it to the next steps.
Right. Yep. You got to look at that as it was maybe bad that happened, but you need to have those things in order to be successful in your business.
Right. Yeah.
So I think a lot of people sometimes shy away from that, and that's the biggest thing. Well, I'm afraid to make mistakes, but you really want to make mistakes.
But you want to, right? That's how you learn. Yeah. Yep.
I've been in business for a really long time, and I still make mistakes. So it's like you're always something new that you're going to learn from all the time.
I hear people say that a lot too, and it's just like you do realize, like, as a music major, like 90% of my work was making mistakes. And literally all people saw was like the 5 to 10% product at the end.
Right.
And I think like there's a lot to learn and draw from my music background. Like I hours upon hours of making mistakes over and over and over. And then all people would see is that 3-second or that 3-minute song performed, and they thought it was all great and good, and didn't see any of the work in the past or behind it.
It's that ta-da moment.
Right.
Hey, look what I just did. But you don't see how I struggled to get to this
Never
point.
mind that I cried in a practice room for hours.
Right. Or something that could take you a really long time to do in the beginning until you figure everything out. I was always that big yes person. Like, how can you, with an agency, like I didn't want to be an agency. I was a promotional company. And can you do this? Yes, I can do it. Can you do this? Yeah, of course I can do that. Like, no problem. Then I'm like, I had no idea how to do it. Not a clue.
Right. But I'll do it.
But I kind of had the confidence that, yes, I can do that. Like, no problem. And at the end, I'd always deliver like a really good product, but there was a lot of struggles in there doing that. But now I deliver those products all the time. And most of the time gracefully, but sometimes there's some bumps in the road. So it's interesting how we go through those times in business.
For sure.
Well, I'm really proud of all your successes and everything that you've told me, and the story is just phenomenal. I love hearing, like I started here, but a lot of us, we lose our passion over time. It's something that we might love for a while, but and it's okay to change, and you can maybe do it 2 or 3 times in a lifetime.
Right. And I hear from moms probably weekly that are just like, I don't have a passion anymore. Right. Like they don't have time, and they've kind of lost that. And I was that person. Yes. But here's the thing, like you don't have to have that one passion and then stick with it. You can go find a new one, right? Like
you can.
I am not a cook. Like we'll probably watch me making creme brulee today, and people are gonna be like, "That's so weird." Like, I'm not a cook. I'm not trained. It's just something that I wanted to learn and really like, and then enjoy doing. So will I enjoy it in 10 years? I don't know. I'll probably have something else I really like to do.
Yep. That's why I started this place, because owning an agency as long as I did, I'm like, okay, time for something else. Not that I'm not going to do that anymore, but having this thing, having that new passion brings you back to life, where helps you do good at whatever you're doing, because you have something that you're happy about.
Right. And I have a good friend
Gives you good energy.
Because I was like kind of lamenting, like I just kind of do all this different stuff, and I don't know if that looks bad. And he's European, and I think this is a real nod to how they're just like, it's okay, because he's like, it's okay, because you know what? Every skill you learn is a skill that's going to help you later in life. And so I always say, go for it. What is the worst that could happen? You learn something new that you know, are good at, or maybe you're not, and then you can tell people your experience. So I say go for it.
I love that. So now we're going to learn about your new experience and your new product. You want to tell us a little bit about it, and then we'll go in the kitchen and
So it's the creme brulee, right? Okay. So I have kind of an American twist on the creme brulee. So everyone knows it as the kind of the caramelized custard. We caramelize the top, you crack it open, there's your creme brulee. And you can have different varieties. You can have lavender creme brulee, or you can do, what's a lemon creme brulee. You can get fancy with those custards, because that's essentially what creme brulee is a custard. But what I like to do with ours is I like to experiment with toppings. So we do a really nice s'mores creme brulee. We'll caramelize, and then we'll also kind of create a s'more on top. And
nice. That sounds good.
Yeah. And then my husband's favorite is a banana Foster's creme brulee. I like to do a little lemon ricotta one. And then my neighbor, the neighbor that comes around periodically, he really would like a pumpkin Bailey's one. So we're trying to figure out how to do kind of a boozy creme brulee for fall. But that's we're kind of in the testing phase. But I'm really excited because we're going to officially launch this creme brulee business in July this month, and it will be under the name Brûlée Ole.
I like it.
Which is kind of more of a nod to the fact that my favorite place is New Orleans. So I always love to go to New Orleans. As soon as I get off the flight, I grab a beignet and a cafe au lait, and then, enjoy the city. So it's kind of a nod to where I like to be most of the time, which is New Orleans.
I love New Orleans too.
So fun.
See why you like it. Okay. Well, are you ready to get cooking?
Yes, of course.
All right, let's go. Hello, here we are in the studio. We're in our test kitchen here at Second Soul Studios, and Keely is going to show us how to make creme brulee.
Yes.
Very excited for this. My husband's going to be so jealous because it's his favorite dessert.
Well, I hope I live up to the standard. But I'm Keely Werly. I'm the owner of the Traveling Tap, which is a mobile bar and service event rental company here in Clearwater, Florida. And I'm here today to walk us through making creme brulee because we are starting a sister company called Brûlée Ole, which will be a mobile creme brulee cart. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So what's important to know about creme brulee is it's a lot to do with timing. So I like to kind of get as many things ready to go as possible. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to measure out our heavy whipping cream. We're not going to turn it on yet. We're just going to measure it out and get it in the pan.
Okay. I hear this is a very difficult dessert to make.
I think some things are difficult, yes. Like I said, the timing is what's key because you have a lot of things going on that have to be done at certain times. You also have to make sure, like, it can also be a very finicky dessert. So if your cream is overheated, if you add it in too quickly, which you'll see in a moment, it can have some negative effects. There's a lot that could go wrong, but I'm here to kind of show you like a really simplistic way to do it and get it done. So I have the cream just kind of sitting and waiting because the longest part of your creme brulee is actually your egg. So if you want to help with this part, my kids are usually in the kitchen. They always want to do this part. We need 4 egg yolks, basically. So if you want to do 2, and I do 2, that would make things go way faster.
Trying to make a big mess. Go.
So we're actually gonna take the yolk and put it in here.
Ooh.
I should have told you this was my dump.
All right.
My dump bowl.
And I'm like the world's sloppiest cook.
That's okay, me too. Like I look at these people that make dishes and their kitchen and I throw them in there.
Okay.
And their kitchens are always like still flawless after making a meal. And I'm like, how do you do that? So I'm glad that you are a messy cook as well because I'm going to just, you know.
Basically, call me the tornado.
Well.
Or Tasmanian devil, even worse in the kitchen.
All right, so this is our last egg. And the recipes for, ooh.
So it's a yolk only.
And I just kind of made a mess of that
Few
one.
napkins.
Yeah. The recipes do vary for creme brulee. Some recipes will call for a full egg in there. This is just the recipe that I like. It's what I prefer.
Okay.
Okay, so then we're gonna add 1/3 sugar.
Okay. 1/3 sugar. I like your cute little hearts.
Right, my hearts.
Let me get some of those.
And then we're gonna do a teaspoon of vanilla. If I was doing this at home, and if I had more time, I would actually do like a stick of vanilla in the cream. But for today's sake, we're gonna do just vanilla extract. And I'm kind of heavy-handed, so I let it kind of spill over and then dump it in. So I do just a tiny bit more than a teaspoon, if we're being honest. All right, so we're gonna actually whip this together. And while we're whipping this, or whisking, I should say, we're gonna actually turn on our heavy cream. There we go.
I turned it on.
So the one thing we have to watch is with that heavy cream is we don't want to scald it and we don't want to curdle it.
So how long do you let it cook for then?
So what I do is I start watching until I see like steam.
Okay.
And if you want to use that little spatula right there, I tend to stir
it a little bit.
Stir it a little bit just to make sure it's not like getting, you know. And then over here, I'm just whisking until everything is mixed together really well.
So do you have a non-fat version of this?
No. But I do small servings, so as long as you just do one, you should be okay.
So it's all about the cream that makes it.
Right? Creme brulee is just basically custard, but through the cooking process and then putting it in the fridge, it hardens it up. So you get this really kind of nice, like firm custard. Mm-hmm. So it's not creamy or smooth in the sense that like it looks like pudding, but it's a little bit firmer of a dessert. So we're just waiting for that induction to kind of happen. And this is where people get kind of like, this is where mistakes happen. So basically when you're mixing that cream into this bowl, we have to do it slowly. Otherwise, it's gonna curdle the eggs in here.
So do you pour it in real slow, or do you just do a little bit at a time?
I do a little bit at a time. And so I also kind of do like a folding method with the spatula. I used to make my creme brulee with the whisk. I used to whisk in the cream, but then I learned from a French bakist. What would be the term for that? A French baker?
French baker? A pastry chef?
A pastry chef,
Yes.
there we go. To use the spatula because it will take away some of the bubbles. And if you've ever seen creme brulee before they caramelize it, it's very smooth on top with very minimal bubbles in it. So I started switching and using the spatula when adding in the cream.
Okay, that's good advice.
So, and then the other thing that I usually do, because remember this is all a timing thing,
Right.
is once that cream is near boiling, I will go over and turn on my kettle because we're going to have to put these creme brulees in a water bath. So if you don't know what a water bath is,
I do not know what a water bath is.
so we have our creme brulee here, right? For it to be custard, we have to set these in water and put them in the oven. It's kind of the same thing you would do with cheesecake. So in order for
You put
that,
water in the pan?
we put water in the pan.
Okay.
Yes. So in order for that to work, we have to use hot water. So I always start my kettle about this time to get the water heating up. So when I'm done mixing the two ingredients and pouring it in the bowls, I can pour that hot water in there.
Okay.
All right, so once I see the cream kind of steam a little bit, I know it's ready to go. I don't want to overcook it because I don't want it to curdle. So from this part, this is where you don't want to just dump it in. You have to go slowly. And it should start dissolving like that sugar you have in there. And then I kind of do like this, kind of swirl and fold, just to make sure everything's getting dissolved. And try to get it off the edges too, because there's a lot of sugar that kind of builds up over there on the edges. But we want it to be really well mixed.
Is creme brulee something that you want to eat right away for the best
So-
flavor?
That's the other hard part. You have to wait. It has to be in the fridge for at least 2 hours. Even better if you can wait a day. However, you don't want to wait more than 2 days. So after 2 days, you do have to throw the creme brulee out. But it does have to go in the fridge for 2 hours.
Oh, so I was thinking when we ordered at French restaurants that they needed time to prepare it. I wonder why that was. I'll have to ask.
Yeah, at least for me, I do put it in the fridge. And a lot of people are like, oh, but I thought it came warmed. Once we start caramelizing it, it will warm up.
Oh, okay.
But for it to really set and get its texture, it has to go in the fridge. And then as we, get towards the end of the pan, I do put a little bit more in each time because we're really not going to curdle any eggs at this point.
So for your events that you go to, how many batches of this do you normally make?
I have only done small events so far, so the largest batch I've done has been 35 creme brulees. I will say that my cart can hold up to 250.
Oh, wow.
So we can do a lot, and I have people that help me. So we wouldn't be doing just like, if we were doing this for a huge event, of course the portions would be more and we would be cooking more at once and we'd have like a whole, operation going.
Nice.
And I'm just gonna pour the rest in, make sure it's all mixed together. All right, so If your water isn't boiling by this point, like you haven't turned it on, now would be the time to turn on your kettle, turn it on high, because we're gonna need to put these into a water bath. So while I'm waiting for my water to finish heating up, I go through and I pour into each ramekin. And I kind of use this from my bartending days. I count to 3.
Because you have to count.
Right? Because I want them to be even. So,
Yep.
so 1, 2, 3. And then 3.
Learn how to make the perfect shot without having to use a shot
Right?
glass.
All right. And then I'll kind of go through and put a little bit more. We don't want to fill them all the way to the top. Because like I said, when we go to caramelize them, we do want some of that heat from the torch to heat up the custard so it's a little bit more warm. And we do want to make sure they're all even so they cook evenly. So after that, we're ready to add our water. If you spill in the pan, it's not a big deal. What we don't want is we don't want it, get on the side of the ramekins.
Right.
But we can always fix that. So we're gonna put them in a water bath, and you usually want to put this about 1/2 inch. If you go a little over 1/2 inch, it's not gonna ruin your creme brulee. I tend to be like paranoid, so I probably fill it up more than I have to. But you just want to make sure that they're sitting in a water bath. If you don't put them in the water bath, you're not going to have custard. You're going to have something completely different. So after you get to this point, you're going to put them in the oven, and then we're going to bring them back out.
Okay.
All right.
Wow, very little ingredients.
Yeah, really
Who knew?
simple. Like I said, it's all about timing. All right, so after we've waited the 2 hours that they've been in the fridge, this is like everybody's favorite part. This is when my kids come like running in because
No, I'm excited.
this is what they want to do. Okay, so you're gonna take a little bit of sugar,
Okay.
and we're basically going to sprinkle it on the top.
Okay.
So it doesn't take a lot, but then again, it feels like it does because you want to make sure you get it all coated across the entire top of the creme brulee. If you do too much sugar, then it's going to be a really hard shell on the top. I like that. My husband, he likes a really thin shell. All right, so after the sugar is on, you're going to basically caramelize the sugar. And you can start to see it. Which is like, I like the smell of the burnt sugar.
Oh, it's fun. Look at that. You can see it bubbling nicely.
I also kind of like mine really burnt. So
Yeah, I like everything burnt.
yeah, like kind of like a marshmallow. So, and then I'm gonna see if I can get these sides a little bit more over here. If you don't get every corner of it, I mean, not a big deal. It is to preference. And then basically, if I was doing this for a party, I would kind of decorate it, make it look a little bit more dressed up. So I would add some strawberries and some blueberries. And you can do like whipped cream on top. You can do raspberries. You can do chocolate shavings. It's essentially whatever you like can be as the topping. And like I said, with Brûlée Ole, we're kind of doing more of an Americanized version of creme brulee, so we do some toppings on top of ours. And then, once you've given it time to set a little bit, you can crack the top and enjoy.
Oh, how long does it need to settle?
It should be ready to go.
Right now?
It's a pretty quick process.
Ooh, look at that. That looks so good. Try a bite. That is delicious.
Thank you.
Wow. Very awesome. I think you got something here.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yes. Yes, I can't wait to go to one of your events and get some more. It's awesome. So be sure to go to the show notes, and we'll have all Keely's information. If you want to rent out one of her bar carts, want to have this beautiful, delicious creme brulee at your party, you can hire her company to come and do all these things for you. Her website will be there. You can find her on social media. And where else can they?
I mean, really,
else?
Instagram. We're all over Instagram, TikTok, and then our website is really the best way to get a hold of us.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for showing me how to make creme brulee. This was fabulous experience.
Yes, no
I really
problem.
enjoyed it so much, and thanks for being on Learning Curves.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for joining our show. Tune in next week. Thanks a lot and have a great day. At CEA Marketing, we take your business, your passion, and your why, and we sell it. If you're unsure where to start marketing your company, CEA Marketing is here to help. Our team at CEA has tons of experience and top-notch training, which helps you take all the stress and confusion out of marketing your own business. After years of working with large companies like Pulte Homes and Metro Places, we guarantee the successful implementation of a marketing strategy.